Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about Primo Levi. Who is Levi? He's a thinker who must be read today and always, especially whenever we are confronted with the question of human condition forced to show its true side under the inhibited pressure of tyranny. Levi was taken to Auschwitz for extermination during the Second World War, but as he said himself, he survived the camp purely by luck. But furthermore, he also pointed out that luck helped up to a certain extent. And then what mattered was also how the luck was used by the prisoner to survive in a concentration camp. After his freedom, Levi wrote numerous books, but his most famous book is If This Is a Man. Today we are going to talk about one of its chapters entitled The Drowned and the Saved, which later he decided to transform into a complete book. Later on, he wrote a book which was entitled The Drowned and the Saved. If This Is a Man is a book that recounts his journey from the moment of his capture to the end of war and his release. He discusses many events and characters inside the lager, the word used for the concentration camp in the book. But most importantly, he also thinks about the reasons and gives us a philosophical perspective of what a human becomes in these kinds of conditions and why. The Drowned and the Saved is a chapter dedicated to the discussion of the kinds of people who were saved and why, and those who perished and why. In the beginning of the chapter, he asserts that we are in fact convinced that no human experience is without meaning or unworthy of analysis, and that fundamental values, even if they are not positive, can be deduced from this particular world which we are describing. Those people who are under the claws of a brutal regime like the Nazis are considered unworthy of reflection. The most any outsider can do is to expect a quick end to those who are suffering, and once that ends, everyone moves on with one's life, considering the matter settled. But the survivors, or the saved, as Levi calls them, consider themselves guilty for being saved. He himself expresses in various writings how much ashamed he feels when he thinks about those who were crushed under the rubble to let him survive. Therefore, the subjective experience of the prisoner under genocide is remarkably different from the objective experience of a critic or a reader. We need to read history from the perspective of the afflicted. We need to look into the heart of darkness and feel the horrible side hiding beneath our skin that can show itself if the right conditions prevail. The beast within us is waiting to raise its head up. It is lurking in darkness and waiting for the world around to become enough dark so that it can flourish and hide all its atrocities. Levi does not believe in natural behavior or a predetermined human condition. He considers human personality to be malleable that transforms according to the environment it is put under. He explains, we do not believe in the most obvious and facile deduction that man is fundamentally brutal, egoistic, and stupid in his conduct once every civilized institution is taken away, and that the halfling is consequently nothing but a man without inhibitions. We believe, rather, that the only conclusion to be drawn is that in the face of driving necessity and physical disabilities, many social habits and instincts are reduced to silence. Halfling was the word used for a prisoner in the lager. Social habits and instincts, no matter how intuitive they sound, are formed by the environment in which a human finds himself. Under useless violence, another term coined by Levi, which is the result of uninhibited power that the oppressor assumes, a human being twists like a coil. Surviving becomes his ultimate aim, and any means to achieve it is his penultimate aim, even if it involves stumping one's own fellow prisoners. This is why Levi concludes that the saved were saved because they drowned the drowned. It does not mean that the Jewish prisoners were responsible for the extermination, but that in the face of the inevitable, that is, in the camp when everyone knew that if not the other, then they will be exterminated. It was just a matter of time before everyone would be gone. The drowned were those who accepted their fate in silence and let the saved go on living in a world where death was the most honorable way to survive in lieu of collaborating with the authorities to survive for one more day. Because the only way to survive in the camp was to be on good terms with the managers of the camp, the drowned were seemingly the weakest but the purest of the prisoners. They were called the Musulmaner. Deriving from the pejorative weakness of the Muslims common amongst Jews at the time, Levi described the situation of the drowned or the Musalmaner thus. Thus, the Musalmaner, the drowned, formed the backbone of the camp, an anonymous mass, continually renewed and always identical, of non men who march and labor in silence, the divine spark dead within them, already too empty to really suffer. One hesitates to call them living, one hesitates to call their death death, in the face of which they have no fear, as they are too tired to understand. But what made this possible? In the lager, the law worked such that it strengthened the weakness of the weak and the power of the powerful. A human society can only sustain itself when the law reins in the power of the powerful and ensure that they do not exploit the weak by providing them the security that balances the power of the weak against the power of the powerful. Levi is led to the conclusion that a country is considered the more civilized, the more the wisdom and efficiency of its laws hinder a weak man from becoming too weak or a powerful one too powerful. Human civilization for him is a balancing act of power. Without harmony of power, a society collapses very swiftly. Absolute majority in the parliament is more dangerous than a balanced parliament, and unfortunately, the UK is heading in that direction in the upcoming elections. Unopposed leaders are dangerous because even though the public is optimistic that now with absolute power there will be no obstruction for the ruling elite to work for the public, but as Levi says, the vertigo sets in after attaining the seat of Prime Minister, who is unopposed from any front. Lets the beast inside show itself without any restraint, and the public is more shocked than relieved. Levi does not leave the argument there. He digs deep into the functionality of the international and national law and finds a remarkable fact there. He asserts, in history and in life, one sometimes seems to glimpse a ferocious law which states, to he that has will be given, to he that has not will be taken away. In the lager, the profession mattered a lot. Levi himself was a chemist, and his expertise were used by the Nazi machine for various chemical experiments and tasks involving chemical knowledge. But Levi is not here only talking about the lager. He is explaining the fact that humans assume what the law should be. To he that has will be taken away, to he that has not will be given. But that is not how the world works. The world is ruled by the interests of money and power. The more one has the money, the more it increases. The more one has power, the more it increases. The saved trampled upon the drowned, because the drowned were a mass of people, whereas the saved were somehow exempted from the mass, because they had something. Levi in the same chapter gives examples of at least 3 Jewish prisoners who collaborated with the Nazi authorities to survive for a day, even helping extermination tactics. They did this not to hurt their fellow beings purposefully, but just to get through the day. Nobody in the lager thought about more than a few hours ahead. Levi does not find them guilty for doing so at the spur of the moment. He is just horrified after reflecting upon these incidents later in life that how is it possible that a human can stoop so low as that and yet cannot be termed guilty? Where did these saved people go? After the Holocaust, the British and the American authorities were worried about the refugee crisis the surviving European Jews would pose to them. The British had to stop these immigrants who were traveling by boats to the UK and plant them in Cyprus between 1945 and 1948. The number is said to be around 50,000 immigrants at the time. And then once the matter was submitted to the UN, Palestine was partitioned and all immigrants were asked to go there and keep away from the US and the UK. There was a remarked difference between the Western Jews and the Eastern Jews. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion announced the formation of the State of Israel. He declared the Nazi Holocaust, which engulfed millions of Jews in Europe, proved anew the urgency of the re-establishment of the Jewish state, which would solve the problem of Jewish homelessness by opening the gates to all Jews and lifting the Jewish people to equality in the family of nations. The creation of Israel is the result of the Holocaust. Today, Israel has more power and Palestine is weak. To whom who has more, more shall be given. To whom who has less, more shall be taken. We are seeing history once again proving why Levi was right. Giving absolute diplomatic support to a country, whether it be good or bad, is a grave sin. Can someone please ask Netanyahu to read Levy? Thank you, everyone.